How is everyone today?
Ed, how are you?
Good?
Good. How are you?
All right.
Open it up with far left, Doug.
Doug.
Obviously, you're worried about this year and this offensive line and what you guys are doing right now. But just knowing in the back of your head that you have 4 junior starters on the offensive line, just what are you looking at in practice with the young guys who you're going to need down the line? Are you trying to get them in games, whenever you can, to get some experience for the backups early in the year, if you can?
Yeah, we're working really hard to develop our depth. We did that in August. We do that in practice. And then whenever we can, we're trying to get them in the games. I think, Jacoby Bourne's played a lot of snaps so far in the first 2 games. Pat Elflein's played. We got Darryl Baldwin in the game, and we'll continue to do that. So we have a plan in place to develop players so that next year, the next wave of guys are ready to go. And so that plan is in place. But, yeah, part of it is what we did in training camp. They got a lot of work there, and they get a lot of work in practice too, because we rep the second unit quite a bit, and then I rotate them in the first unit during practice as well. So, yeah, there's a plan in place for player development and to get guys ready.
Front row over to the right, Tim.
Yeah, Ed, as you guys looked at Kenny Guyton's game and stuff, did y'all skip a beat? Did y'all miss a beat at all with him in there? Just give me a summation of like what you guys saw as you looked at it offensively.
No, really, when Kenny goes into the game, there's an extreme amount of confidence by the coaching staff and the players in his ability to execute the plan. So at that point in time, playing against San Diego State, the key was just stick with the game plan, stick with what he's practiced, and know that if we need to make adjustments as we progress, he's a smart player and he understands and can make adjustments. But really, we didn't plan on changing anything. And you even saw, Kenny had that long run. That was a play that obviously had been designed for Braxton, and we still called it with Kenny, and he broke it and scored. So we really didn't change much in that regard. But yeah, he just brings, there's a lot of confidence. You don't feel like all of a sudden half of the game plan page is eliminated because your second team quarterback goes in. We feel like that he's still very capable of executing just about everything on there. And, obviously nobody's the same. We're not trying to say they're the same guy, but so there are certain plays you might stay away from, but 90% of what's on that game plan is still in play when Kenny's in the game.
These guys, Cal ran, I think, a 3-4 last year, and they've gone to a 4-3 this year. Does that fit more what you guys like to see? Or, just talk about switching up, going against a different front this week.
Yeah, they play a different defense this year than last year. Their new coaching staff has a different defensive package. But the odd defense, the 3-man front, has become more common in NFL and college football, so you have to be prepared for that. Our defense does both, but our defense is more of a 4-down, so we would practice against more of a 4-down, in practice, just because that's what our defense is going to play more often. But again, you do have to shift and you have to adjust. So they look like they're predominantly going to be a 4-down front. I think our kids will have great confidence in how to block that, and so just go back to that. It just changes up a little bit for the offensive line fundamentals, of blocking 3-man versus 4-man fronts. So that's something that we'll work on this week. It doesn't change a lot for other players outside the O-line.
Front row, Austin.
You referenced the ability you've had maybe to build some depth. Norwell and Lindsey were out for a little bit. When you go back to when Corey has surgery, did you have any concern then about the timeline for getting him back? When the decision makes, he might miss much of camp, early season games. How did you respond to that initially when it was laid out?
Well, a lot of things you can't control, so you have to figure out how the best way to manage them and move forward. But all the decisions were made with a plan in place that would allow him to start the first game and play and be ready to go. And so that plan was put in place, and it was executed by he and the medical staff and the training staff. So I think we're right where we thought we would be at this point in time. But it does, get some other guys involved in the process more reps and so forth because we, monitored how much he did in the off season, how much he did in training camp to make sure.
Has he been a guy who's been pressing to get ahead of schedule or, coming out after 17 plays in the opener, for instance, like wanting to be?
Yeah, he wanted to play more in the opener. He wanted to play more in the last game, but circumstances were such that we were in a good situation where we didn't have to do that, so we didn't. But we also had kind of a pitch count for him, and we knew what that pitch count was. And when he got to his number, we said, what do we want to do here? And we got him out of the game. And we put a good player in, backing him up in Jacoby, so we're fine there. So everything has progressed there fine, and he's 100%. And had we needed to play him more than that in the first 2 games, we could have. But the situation was such that we didn't feel like we needed to and that we could move forward and not do that.
Front row, Bill.
And how important, can you quantify how important Corey is to that offensive line? Obviously, Urban has referred to him as the apex, being that position.
Well, your center, for your offensive line is, kind of your quarterback of that position or your point guard of that position, so to speak. I mean, he calls out the starting point for what we're going to do. I mean, identifying defenses, identifying protections, making adjustments. He's in the middle, hence the apex, hence the fact he can see both sides. So that's why most people have their center be the voice of communication in their offensive system. So he does that, and he does it very well. He's a very smart guy, studies the game, understands conceptually what we're trying to do. So, having him out there and his knowledge base and the fact that he's physically talented and a good football player, I mean, that combination, it's great to have him. And, so it just makes you feel like, you're going to be on the right page. Now, in hindsight, I mean, Jacoby Bourne's a 4.0 student here, and he's really smart too, so he isn't putting us in the wrong calls or anything like that. He just didn't have quite as much experience. So, but,
He made such a big jump last year. Has he continued to improve? Because in what ways has he improved?
Corey?
Corey.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he did make a tremendous jump. I mean, he hadn't played, and he played a lot and played very well and was very consistent. And you try to build on that. The only thing that's set back some of that progress has been, battling through the injury and not working as much as you would like because he's doing rehab. But, he's a very gifted player who, gives us a great chance in the middle to open holes and run the ball inside. And he's good at what he does. And the players, there's a camaraderie amongst all those guys because there's 4 seniors and he's been the apex. And so they let him run the show up there. You don't have the other guys trying to tell him no, and trying to override him and make the calls for him. I mean, he's the head of the show and he runs the show and he does a good job of it. So it's good. So they like having him in there because they know that he'll put them on the right plan.
Middle, Todd.
Did you mention that Braxton and Kenny aren't the same player? They play the same offense. How do the guys around them adjust? As the offensive linemen, do they have to adjust a little bit differently when Kenny's in there because they're used to, Braxton may do A, B, or C, as where Kenny will do X, Y, or Z?
Not really. I don't think the offensive line, we don't talk to them about any adjustments or anything different. I mean, we don't have a mentality that, okay, we're going to a different type of offense or a different type of mentality when Kenny's in there. I just think like anything, when one of your marquee players goes down, the mentality of every guy who's on the field is, I got to play just a little bit better. I got to be a little bit more locked into a better job to help pick up any slack that may be there. And not that there is a lot of slack in, what I mean? I'm not trying to insinuate that. What I'm saying is that everybody, when a good player goes down, has got to pick up their game a little bit. And I just think that, Kenny is so charismatic. He has leadership skills. The guys like him that they're ecstatic to go out and block their butt off for him.
Second row, middle, Dave.
And how was the move of Billy Price to offensive line gone so far? I know talking to him during recruitment, he really wanted to play D tackle, but obviously he's playing O-line. How's that going so far?
It's going great. Billy, again, is a very smart kid, understands football, has natural blocking talents, that you don't have to coach some of the things that he's good at already. The fact that he's going to learn the craft of playing center behind Corey Lindsley, who's also another Youngstown guy, and they've become pretty good buddies. And so he's learning how to play that position. So he's a center or guard, but he can be pretty good at both. And it's been real smooth. I mean, he's a natural there, just so we're clear on that. He's real natural there. It's not like there's a lot of work to be done. Just teach him our system and continue to get stronger and understand how to play at this level,
Quick follow-up. In a perfect world, would you like to redshirt him so you can get 2 years between him and Jacoby at that position?
Probably. I mean, unless things happen that we can't control. I mean, possibly. I mean, that could be where that's headed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Last question, over from the far right, Doug?
Over your head. Taylor Decker had, obviously he was singled out a little bit in the opening game, had some problems.
Mm-hmm.
Last game he was quiet, which I assume was a good sign because we didn't hear or see him much.
That was a good sign.
Yeah.
He played much better, much more confident in the second game. You guys know, and we know, and I've talked to former head coaches who wander around in this building about guys whose first game in the shoe sometimes can be very stressful and they can get worked up. And I think he was just a little too excited. Nerves, whatever, pressure, tried to play outside of himself. He looked more like what I saw in August in the second game, and he settled in and he played a solid game and, really was very productive. So what he did against San Diego State is what we thought we'd get out of him, and hopefully he'll continue that trend. So, yeah, he bounced back. He had a couple bad plays. He didn't play awful, but the problem is if you're a corner and you get beat twice in 70 plays, that's a bad game. If you're a tackle and you get bit twice in 70 plays, that's a bad game. I mean, hopefully everyone understands that, because when you get beat at tackle, the quarterback goes down on the ground. When you get beat at corner, it's a touchdown. So, that's the thing, is he didn't play, grade out at 50% in the first game. He had a few bad plays against a really good player that, but it was a good learning experience for him, and hope it doesn't happen again.